Moving to an entirely new place can be very overwhelming, first off, and also very complicated, especially if you're thinking about buying a home in a new place where you've never been. These are the top things that I think that you need to know if you are planning on moving to Eugene, Oregon and buying a house here. Hi, my name is Hannah Caldwell. I'm your local Eugene realtor. And if you are considering a move to Eugene, Lane County, or any of the surrounding areas, I would love to help. You can shoot me an email, which is in the description box below. So the biggest thing about people moving to Eugene or anywhere new, really, is managing expectations and making sure all of your expectations are realistic. So the first thing that comes to mind for people that are moving to Eugene is understanding what our homes actually look like. So Eugene is an interesting market because it's pretty anti-expansionary. We haven't had a movement of the urban growth boundary in a really long time, and for that reason, we don't have a lot of new construction happening in Eugene. This means that the majority of our inventory, it kind of is in like 3 waves. So I say the original settlement of Eugene, if you want to call it that, which is lots of areas that are close into downtown. What you're going to see are homes built between 1900 and like 1945, 1950. These homes come with their own unique array of charm, for sure. Lots of craftsman style, very cute, original fir floors, built-ins, built with like very integral building, but oftentimes major systems are lacking. So that means older wiring, older plumbing, oftentimes foundation issues, and just the nature of living in an old house. Wonky floors is very common, odd texture on the wall or some cracks here and there, very common. So knowing that about those homes. Then there was a secondary expansion of Eugene that happened in the 60s to the 80s. And this is the majority of Eugene, I would say. So it's either ranch style homes, or if you're up in the hills, split level homes. And these homes also have their own unique subset of charm and problems. So in these homes, you're going to see a lot more asbestos. You're going to see a lot more issues with, you're still going to see settlement and foundation. This is still very common in lots of parts of Eugene in homes of this age. But what you also see in all of these homes kind of across the board is like a lack of updating. Oftentimes these homes still have a lot of original features, sometimes original appliances, oftentimes original countertops or outdated flooring. And this is something that I've noticed has been a lot different than a lot of other places in the United States, because I do have so many clients moving from, the Southeast, the Southwest, the Midwest, and they're just as a different, I guess like a different culture around maintaining and upkeeping a home and updating it. So oftentimes people are surprised when they come to Eugene about what they're going to get for their money. So I always say, have realistic expectations about what the home is actually going to look like, how updated it's going to be, how move-in ready, all of these things. Part of that, in terms of having realistic expectations, is what can I get in Eugene for what price? And what can I afford? So our median home price right now is around $485,000. That's pretty high. And that is for a modest home. That is not for a gigantic home. It's not for a new home. We are talking probably, you can find a 3-bed, 2-bath, but you're probably looking under 1,400 square feet with some datedness that needs updating. And who knows about how the main systems of the home are functioning. The roof, the foundation, the HVAC system. So that's for our median household price of $435,000. There is a very slim market for homes that are below $350,000. I would say there is still an okay amount of inventory between $300,000 and $350,000, but what you can expect in that price point is a lot of need for updates. Sometimes these homes, especially sub 300, I would say you are looking pretty much at fixers that are generally going to need so much work they probably won't even be financed by a federally backed loan. They would need to be cash purchases, or you could go with a hard money or private money lender. But sub 300 in terms of homes that can actually be financed, I would say is starting to be more and more of a unicorn. So if you are thinking about moving to Eugene and thinking that could be a price point you want to be in, I just caution you to make sure you're looking at what inventory is available and making sure that there is something that suits you within your budget. With that being said, most of our houses are going to be between 400 and, I would say 400 and 750 is like our prime pocket of the majority of homes in Eugene. And in this price range, there is a wide variety of styles, of levels of updatedness, levels of upkeep. So it's just really important to know what you're getting into and have a look ahead of time. Also, having realistic expectations about the timeline, how long it might take you to actually move, maybe across multiple states. Especially if you have to consider the variables of where you're moving from. Do you have a house to sell in the place that you're moving from? What are your days on market like there? How active is your market there? This will play a big role in when you start looking for homes in Eugene, and also how you can purchase homes in Eugene. So whether you're purchasing it contingent on the sale of your home wherever you're moving from. So there's lots of moving parts and pieces to this timeline. So you need to make sure, especially if you are selling a home and then buying one, that you have agents that are working as a team, that know what the timelines look like, know how to negotiate this so that you don't end up in a oops situation where you might be homeless for a couple weeks, or in a situation where you're carrying multiple mortgages for too many months. So making sure that you have a realistic expectation of what the timeline looks like and how that's going to work. That kind of plays a little bit into the process as well. Buying a home when you're moving multiple states is a unique process. It's different than if you were just moving down the street. And this comes with a lot of questions for a lot of my buyers that may be moving to Eugene, Oregon from out of state, and for whatever their circumstances are, they don't have the opportunity to come here before they move. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's just the reality for a lot of people. There just isn't the time for them to come and explore Eugene and see houses in person before they actually end up having to move here for various reasons. And so that's a really important thing to know about the process. Let's talk about the process a little bit. It can be done so many different ways. So once you start looking at homes, you will have a buyer's representation agreement signed with an agent. And even if that agent is doing virtual showings for you, or, however you and that agent set up your process, you will have to have a buyer's representation agreement signed and in place ahead of time. Then, there are different ways you can do this. Some people don't have an opportunity to come. So what you're doing is you're doing virtual tours, and those exist already on lots of homes. So you can look at those online. But I always, for my clients, have a virtual tour where I go personally and film the home for them. And because I have a more critical eye and am there and can see what's happening in person, I can point out, specific features, whether it's something that could be of concern or it's something that is like a good thing that you just can't see on photos or a virtual tour. Sometimes people have special lighting installed or soft close cabinets, but also I can see the foundation cracks that they're not going to put on their virtual tour, and I can see the moisture staining on the ceiling from a potential roof leak. So these are the things that I'm going to point out to you. People often ask, okay, well, what do I have to be there for in person? What should I be, considering when I'm considering flying back and forth from one place to another in the process of buying this home? The answer is you don't have to be here for anything in person if you either can't or don't want to be. The home inspection. So the next part of the process, you pick a home, you go under contract, and then you're going to have a home inspection. And again, this is something that you're going to rely on your agent for. Do they have connections with a trusted home inspector? And then that home inspector is going to give you a comprehensive, and when I say comprehensive, I mean comprehensive report on all of the deficiencies of the home, down to things as small as a little crack in an outlet plate on a light switch or an outlet. And of course, big things like a major crack in the foundation or a major sway in the roof. And you're going to get a comprehensive written report with this. But in addition to that, when I'm working with my clients, I do a video walkthrough with them, with the inspector in real time, so we can walk through the home. The inspector goes through the majority of the major findings, and my clients have an opportunity to ask any questions of the inspector that they might have about different issues. And having somebody that you trust, because there are, location specific issues, like, do we have more mold and mildew here than they probably do in Arizona? Yes, we do. And so we know what to look for, and we also know how significant of a risk it is, what the remediation looks like, all of those things. So, having somebody that is boots on the ground for you is important. That being said, if you want to come to look at homes in person, if you want to come to the home inspection in person and you want to make those trips, that is great. I do think that in person is always more beneficial if it's possible, but it's just not always possible. What about signing the paperwork? What do you have to go into the office and sign the 100 pages to buy your home? The answer is no, you don't. You don't have to be here in Oregon to sign papers. Most real estate purchases do have to be notarized. So what you'll do is you'll just use a mobile notary in whatever state you reside in, and you can sign them right there from home. If you have any questions, generally, your title or escrow officer will be available via phone to answer questions. Of course, your agent and your lender also know when you're signing, so that if the questions do come up, we are available to answer those questions for you, but you don't have to be here in person for that. You honestly don't even have to be here in person to get your keys or to turn on your utilities. I have had clients close where the close date is, one day, and they're going to be here in a week from then. And I, as their real estate agent, just hold on to their keys for that time being. Of course, I have a specific safe place that I keep them. And you can contact utility companies from out of state, have your utilities turned on and ready and waiting for you. So knowing how the process works and having realistic expectations and knowing how you specifically want to do the process. Do you want to do it all remote? Do you want to make sure you're there when you're just looking at homes, but the rest of it can be remote? There are so many ways to put this together, in terms of how the actual process will go through. Another thing to always be cognizant of when you're moving from another state is what the responsibilities you'll have as a homeowner in your particular, wherever you're moving to, that climate, that, those CC&Rs, so those covenants of that neighborhood, if it has an HOA, so knowing your homeowner responsibilities. So certain things that people do in different states with a different climate, like we have to do more roof maintenance, clean gutters more frequently than a lot of people do in southern states. We do have to worry about our hoses freezing, but we don't have to worry about shoveling snow. And we don't have to worry about winterizing our house and making sure, that everything is buttoned up perfectly, because we don't have that harsh of winters. And, there are just different things in different neighborhoods and different things in different parts of town. And this is going to just be you talking through what the expectations are as a homeowner in the specific houses that you're looking at. Lastly, the big thing that I like to talk about is financing and lenders and that part of the process when you're thinking about buying a home in Eugene. Lenders, there's a whole thing in the real estate industry about whether or not you should use local lenders. And there are absolutely benefits to using a local lender. One, they understand the market. Two, they're generally known by all of the agents in that market. And so when an agent sees a pre-approval letter come in from that lender, they already know them and have at least some semblance of a relationship with them. So they're not immediately like, I don't know, because the problem is if you have a lender that's not local, there's always a risk that the listing agent not your agent that's representing you, but the agent that's representing the seller is weary that that lender is not going to be able to get this to the finish line and get you across the close. With that being said, I work with relocation clients all the time, and I work with their lenders from their home states that they're moving from all the time. And sometimes, honestly, they're better experiences than some of the other lenders that are local that I've worked with, in the past. And so this is just going to come down to your personal preference. If you have somebody that you trust and you like working with, then I think you trusting the person that you are working with is more important than having a local lender for the sake of making the listing agent comfortable. And this will come down to your agent. You have to give your lender's information to your agent so that we can form a team, so that I can understand how they work and that I can validate that they will be able to get you across the finish line. And that way I can vouch for them when a listing agent does say, well, this is not a local lender, are they going to be able to do all the things that they need to do? I can vouch for them and I can say, yes, I've spoken to this lender. This lender is very capable. This is their underwriting process, A, B, C, and D. So with that all being said, it all comes down to expectations and your personal preference. So as long as you have realistic expectations and you know exactly what your plan is for going through the process, how much you want to be there for in person, who your team is, who you're going to build on your team, and knowing how you want, what you want the end product to be and where you want to be and where you want to end up, then buying, even when it's out of state, buying in Eugene can be a very smooth process. If this is something that you are planning to do, please feel free to reach out to me and we can talk through all of these things that you need to know when you are planning on moving from out of state. I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks for watching.